I took a chance when I moved to Thailand. I'd already hit retirement age. I was 60, but I didn't have much money. I knew I would need to do something to supplement my income in Thailand. There was nothing I could do back in England to make more money. I was never very successful, and I wanted to enjoy my retirement as best I could. Unfortunately, I now find myself back in England, in a council flat, receiving financial assistance from the government. I should be getting my pension in a few more years. That is, unless they change the pension age and keep moving it up. And when I do get that pension, maybe I will be able to try and have another go in Thailand. Whether that will be possible, I can't say. When Thailand opened up after COVID, this is when I turned 60, I was on one of the first flights into Thailand restriction-free. I didn't want to go when I had to do any form of quarantine, so I patiently waited until the country reopened. I had visited before, a few times, but the most I'd ever spent there was 2 weeks, and I couldn't wait to see what it was going to be like to be able to live there. I had my heart set on Bangkok. I really liked the city and stayed initially in a hotel in Eka Mai. All I had to my name was £100,000, and this was meant to see me out until my pension kicked in, or until I started making some money on the side. I even considered having a go at YouTube, but that was not something I thought I'd have any success with. I was due to receive my pension at 68. That was a year older, it would have been 67, and I reckoned I could make the money last until then. It would be 8 years. After I spent a couple of days in Bangkok, I thought it was time to look around for a place to rent. I wanted to get a cheap place and make sure that the money stretched as far as it could, but all the condos I looked at in the areas I wanted to stay were a bit out of budget. When you go a bit further out of the city, you can find condos there, but it takes you such a long time to get to the areas you want to be in, you decide that it's better to forget about that and think of something else. I'd been to Pattaya before, so got the bus there to have a look at what condos I could get within walking distance of what I would consider to be the best areas. I quickly discovered that the condo prices in Pattaya were a lot more affordable, and I decided to make there my home instead. I paid 10,000 baht a month for a condo with an incredible view out over the ocean, and it was so convenient to be able to walk to all kinds of places. I quickly forgot about Bangkok and settled in to life in Pattaya. Got a retirement visa, I put 800,000 in the bank and spent the first couple of weeks living on overdrive. The idea was to settle down after that, but I wanted to live it up. I had a great couple of weeks, went to the bars, went to eat nice food, and tried to get all of it out of my system so I could settle into a normal life. And just as expected, after a few weeks of living the good life, I did start to slow down and got into normal living. I started also thinking about ways I could earn some money so I'd be able to live the good life more often. I bet you're expecting me to say I met a girl and lost all my money to her. And when I did meet the girl in one of the bars who became my girlfriend, this was not what caused me to fail and have to leave Thailand so soon. The girl I met was in her 40s, and she moved in with me quickly. Her children were already grown up, so I didn't need any money to give to them, and she was just happy to stay with me and didn't want for much of anything. It was still within my budget for her to live with me, so that wasn't one of the issues I was facing, but I didn't really need to start anything else, apart from wanting to earn extra money. As I said, I originally thought about YouTube. I even made a few videos, but when I looked back at them, I didn't think anybody would watch them, so I decided this wouldn't be something I would pursue further. I joined some online platforms that offered remote work for people, and I even got a job in telesales for a company back in England. I did that for a week, but I couldn't keep up with that. It was the most boring thing you could think of, answering the phones non-stop for 8 hours in a row, during UK hours as well, which meant my earnings, or my evenings, were not free to be able to go out and eat. I wasn't prepared to do that for a long time. I watched so many videos about how people earn money remotely, and everything seemed to be so easy for the people explaining how to do it. But when I went to have a go, it was almost impossible. Drop shipping, affiliate marketing, and everything in between. Perhaps I was too old to understand how to do these things, and I wasn't having success with anything. The only thing I was able to do was the most boring work, and while it did pay around £1,000 a month, that still wasn't worth it for me, as it was destroying me mentally. I spent hours every day watching YouTube about how people earned money abroad. I knew it was possible because so many people were doing it. I wanted to be one of them because I really didn't want all my money to vanish before my pension arrived. My pension wouldn't have been a lot of money. I'd have been able to exist on it, but I wanted to do more than exist. Everything I ever wanted and dreamt of was right outside my front door. All I needed to do was have the money to be able to pay for it. One day, when I was out for a drink, I didn't go out often in order to save money. I got speaking to a guy who was about half my age and who told me that he lived in Pattaya and had been here for about 5 years. I thought this was a great opportunity to ask him how he managed to do that. What did he do to be able to stay here? He told me he was a trader, and he made his money spread betting and trading CFDs, telling me this stood for contracts for difference. He said it was easy to open up an online platform such as IG Index, get your account verified, deposit money, and start trading. He told me he was making good money, and there was nothing showing that made me think he was lying or exaggerating. We never really know what people actually do, but it was enough to intrigue me to go back to my condo and start researching. I'd never watched content like this on YouTube before, but there were so many channels teaching people how to trade, what to look for in the markets, signals, and everything that I needed to feel like I was able to have a good go. I opened myself an account with IG Index and quickly got it verified using my UK details. Having that account there, with all the flashing lights and prices going up and down every second it seemed, I felt like I'd found something that I could finally do. I wasn't going to jump right in at the deep end though. I was going to study it and learn and be one of those that made a good amount of money from it. I'd been studying for a few weeks. I must have spent 8 hours a day on YouTube watching everything I could find about the topic of trading, and I deposited £1,000. I was going to trade gold, and one channel said this was the easiest thing to trade. I opened the charts on IG, and when a signal came that I thought I recognized, I opened up a trade to buy gold at £1 a point. I did everything correctly and put a stop loss at 25 points and the take profit at 40 points. I thought I only needed to be right 50% of the time, and if I could get the odds of losing 25 and make 40, I'd be made. It sounded so easy, and half an hour later, the trade closed and I'd made £40. That buzz you get when you win the trade is a feeling like no other. You'd studied the market, made a call about what you thought it was going to do, and you were right. That was when I thought that this was going to be the way I was going to make a lot of money. I watched the charts all day that day, and I placed another 2 trades, and lo and behold, they both won. I'd made £120 that day and went out with my girlfriend to celebrate what I thought was the start of something amazing. I spent all that money that I'd made, and we went to a luxury restaurant and had a few bottles of wine. I was on the way, I felt, and I wanted to live like this every day. The next day, however, I placed 3 trades. Only 1 won and 2 lost, which meant I lost £10. But it wasn't the end of the world, and it's just part of trading. The day after, it happened again, 2 losses and 1 win, and £10 down. I wasn't worrying, but I hoped the next day it would be better. It wasn't. I placed a trade that I thought was a guaranteed win, But when he was approaching the stop loss, I was so sure it was going to go up that I cancelled the stop loss and bought in again. It continued to go down, and I bought again for a third time. And this is when you get carried away with yourself. I was now trading £3 a point, and if it went down another 20 points, I'd have lost 60 more. I was already down 75, having entered where my stop losses should have been, and when it continued to go down, I had no choice but to exit all 3 trades. I ended up losing £250, which was a quarter of my initial deposit. I was upset by this, but I thought to myself it was only because I made the stupid decision to try and double down that it happened like this, and then to watch it 10 minutes later shoot back up, so if I'd stayed in, I'd have made 200. It was upsetting. Over the course of the next week, I'd lost all the £1,000, plus the 120 I'd made on the first day. It was so easy to lose that money, but for some reason, I convinced myself that it was still early days, and I needed to continue with it because there was so much money to be made if I did it properly. I held off depositing again and buried myself back into YouTube looking for any channel that seemed to have an edge. That's when I found a channel that was advertising a trading robot that they said had been successful for the past 3 years. I signed up for their newsletter, and everything they sent and everything they showed, it looked like they were doubling their account every year and had done so for the past 3 years. The guy who ran the channel even went live, and when he was live, he'd show his trading robot trading, and it appeared to win most of the time. I wasn't sold as of yet, but the more I looked into it, the more it seemed like I'd found the needle in the haystack I was looking for. They charged $2,500 for their course, so I could learn exactly how to use this robot, and they had a monthly subscription of $250, so I could keep it active on my account. I paid them the money, and they sent me the course material, which I studied over the next week. They advised me to open an account on a different brokerage, one that would work best with their robot. It was all connected through MetaTrader 4. I opened the brokerage account, got it verified, and deposited some money, and started trading at very minimal lot sizes. Over the next week, I watched the $1,000 that I deposited to. I had to use dollars, not pounds. I would prefer to use pounds, but I couldn't. But it turned into $1,050, and I thought if I could continue like this, I would deposit more money. As part of the course, they shared all the material and back trading logs from the past 3 years, and everything pointed to the fact that it had worked across these years. The biggest drawdown was 20%, which I thought was acceptable. When I spoke to a friend about the system I found, he told me to be very cautious. Trading is a very difficult game, and professional traders are happy if they make 10, 15, or 20% a year. These would be considered fantastic returns. These guys were here promising you 100% a year, which likely meant they were taking big risks to make this, and it would only take one thing to go wrong for you to lose everything. I listened to what he said, but I chose to believe the system, because I was watching it work week after week, and my account was going up and up. It actually turned $1,000 into $1,300 in a month, and had very little drawdown. I even tested withdrawing some money from the brokerage to make sure that wasn't a scam, and the money arrived back in my bank extremely quickly. I decided to deposit some more money. I deposited $10,000, or another $9,000, so my total was $10,000. It continued to work. Over the next 6 months, it had gone up to $17,000, and I found that $7,000 profit in 6 months didn't feel like a lot. But I was so sure with the system that I decided to put in the bulk of my savings. I was so sure that the system was going to work and provide for me that I actually thought it would be stupid if I didn't put the money in, because I was just leaving money on the table. All I had left was my retirement deposit of 800,000 baht and enough money to live for the next 6 months. In all, I had $110,000 in the account, and I envisaged what life would be like in a year's time when I doubled it. The next year will be the biggest up and down of emotion I'd ever experienced. I'd watched as my balance in the account went up by 20,000. I took out 5,000 and left the rest to compound. One thing that I'd learned by watching a lot of financial YouTubers was that compounding was very important. But when you have some money that you've made and you've taken off the table, you get to enjoy it. I spent that $5,000 in a week. I bought a motorcycle and just really lived it up with the expectation I'd be able to take out another 5,000 soon. And lo and behold, I could. The account had gone up by 15,000 across the next month. I took out 5,000 again and splurged it on anything that I thought would bring me some fun. I thought I had really found the holy grail of money-making opportunities, and I was having the time of my life. All the nerves I had before going in seemed to have vanished. I was so sure in the system and how it was working, the next month wasn't good. I didn't lose any money, but it was only made 2,000. I was thinking 2,000, that's rubbish. But when I first moved to Thailand, if I could have had another 2,000 a month, I'd have been ecstatic. Looking back, I bet many people are thinking you should have run while you were ahead. That's what I wish I did. But we don't know at the time what the best thing to do is. The next month, however, was the best month ever. I just couldn't believe what was happening. It made $30,000. $30,000 in a month. I saw that profit and thought, you know what? I'm going to leave all of it in because it's going to compound even more. The fact that it made just under 30% in 1 month did not send any alarm bells ringing in my mind. I felt like it was normal and possible and not luck. And when I go back and look at it from time to time, I perhaps should have thought that wasn't the case. Over the past 3 years, with the results that they'd shared, also showed it working time after time. I ran into the guy who told me he did trading for a living and who inspired me to investigate and get started myself. And I told him just how successful I was. I told him I made $30,000 last month, and he looked at me and said, "That's great. You must have deposited a fortune to make that." I told him I put in $100,000, and he looked at me and said, "You must be taking some immense risks to have made $30,000 on $100,000. And I told him no. I'd found a system and a trading robot which did all the trades for you. I had found it online and it's been working well. If that was any advice in my life that I wish I took the advice that he gave me when he said, "Get your money out and run. You can't make that much money unless you're lucky, and you must have been extremely lucky." I just wasn't believing him. I'd say anything in front of my very eyes, just how much money it was making, and I was so keen to continue making more and more. I did have a target in place, that if I could double or treble my initial money, then I'd stop. That'd be enough. Against the advice of this guy, I continued the following month, and it made money again. This time it made 5,000, but it was still 5,000. I took out 1,000 to have a couple of great nights, but I left all of it in. Can anyone guess what happened the next month? This was the month where everything went wrong. To go from $100,000 initially up to nearly $150,000, I thought there was no way things could go wrong. But this time, the market behaved in a way that it had never behaved before. Trade after trade was losing. I wasn't putting these trades on, the robot was doing it, and I could have closed them, but I trusted in the robot. But in the first day of bad news, it lost $60,000. I thought it was just a drawdown and it was going to go up the next day, but the day after it lost $40,000. It was putting on trade after trade after trade using really high leverage, and by this time I was in hysterics. I was panicking, and if I'd stopped there and then, I'd have lost a fortune. I chose to trust the system, and I trusted in the system all the way down to my account being stopped out with $147 left. Over the course of a week, I'd lost all my money and all the profits it had made. This was the low point of my life. I couldn't believe what had happened. The guys who I was paying money to, £250 a month for the system, went dark, uncontactable. I willingly gave them the money, and they had already disclaimers in place, and it just so happened that when things went wrong, it went wrong when I was in. If I had done it a year before, maybe it wouldn't have gone wrong. Maybe the numbers that they provided and the back trades were all fabricated and a lie. I didn't know what to believe anymore, but all I did know was that in my bank, all I had was my retirement deposit of 800,000 baht, and, in my other account, 23,000 baht. That was meant to last me for the next 8 or 9 years. Well, that wasn't going to happen. When it dawned on me just how serious the situation was, I had no idea what to do. What would you do in a situation when everything that you had made and gone was gone over the course of a few days? Not only that, the few days before, you were thinking that the kind of life you were going to lead soon was going to be amazing. The difference in those feelings nearly ended me completely. When I told my girlfriend what happened, we had no choice but for her to leave. I couldn't live in Thailand anymore. It was obvious. Even if I ate into my retirement deposit and was very careful, that money would only last 2 years at best. And I still had another 6 years to go until my pension would arrive. I'd never felt such a sense of failure and such a sense of the whole world being on top of me all at once. I thought about it long and hard, and it just made me think how stupid must I have been, in essence, to gamble all my money on an online system that traded gold. What was I thinking? The problem was it worked initially, which gave me a false sense of security. If I'd come out at the top, I'd have made a good chunk of money. But it would have made a big difference in my life. If I'd come out on the initial drop, I'd have lost some money, but I'd have still been able to stay in Thailand. But I clung to the system with the hopes it would work. Every email I sent to the guys who made the robot went unanswered. They removed their YouTube channel, and it was obvious that things didn't go as they were expecting as well. But nothing could be done about it, and I came to the realization that I might as well just leave Thailand now. I had 2 choices. Go when all my money ran out. I'll go now and try to make back what I had in my pension. I'd be older then, and I'd have missed out on 6, 7 or even 8 years in Thailand. But if I did stay in Thailand, I'd probably try to make my money last a long time and wouldn't enjoy myself anyway. When my girlfriend moved out, I actually walked with her back to the bar where she worked before, and she had to start working there again. I did like her a lot, but it wasn't a serious relationship, but even still it hurt. I booked a flight back to England for 2 days' time, went to the bank, withdrew my money and exchanged it for pounds, and got the bus back to Bangkok. I stayed in a hotel with a view of the city, looking out, wondering if I would ever see it again. Would I ever come to Thailand again, or would this be my last time ever? I'd never been as depressed in my life, and when the time came to board the plane, I was just thinking about what else to do. Arriving back in England, a complete failure, was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I had to move in with a friend who graciously let me stay at their place, and I applied for so many houses until I eventually got a council house. It took a long time, and the fact my friend let me stay at his place for over a year, I'm so thankful for him. I now live in a very small amount of money, and can only be thankful that I'm from England and that it's possible to get government help. I just wish I could use this money in Thailand, but it doesn't work like that. It's more than enough to live in Thailand, but if I moved to Thailand and they caught me, well, that's probably not the best idea. My life now revolves around YouTube and watching other people living places where I want to be, and I hope one day that my health will remain in place and I'll be able to go back when my pension finally does start to be paid. It won't be a great life when it does, but at least I'll be in Thailand, which is where I want to be. I am expecting to get absolutely roasted for being one of the biggest idiots the world has ever seen, but when things were working, I pictured what life would have been like having the money I needed to be able to do what I wanted. It blinded me to the realization that I was gambling with all my money, trusting people I'd never met, with a system that they said was better than anything else had been created before. I should have known that if it didn't work, I would be left with nothing. This is my story. It's still ongoing. 5 more years and maybe I'll be in Thailand again. Just maybe. I still think every single second of every single day what I could do to make some more money. Make enough to be able to enjoy my retirement. When I finally make it back to Thailand, if I make it back, will I be able to enjoy it then? Thank you, Kevin.